The red sand burned through the thin fabric of her clothes. Iris tried to open her eyes, but the light stabbed like knives into her skull. Everything hurt. Her body felt like it was on fire from the inside. She remembered the transport ship, the other refugees crowding around her when she started coughing up blood, the captain's cold eyes when he ordered his crew to leave her behind. They said she had radiation poisoning. They said she would spread it to others. They said they were sorry, but sorry did not matter when you were 12 years old and dying alone on a planet that wanted you dead. Skorath was supposed to be empty. The Galactic Coalition used it as a dumping ground for things nobody wanted. Broken ships, failed experiments, toxic waste that would poison any living thing. The air tasted like metal and ash. Every breath scraped her throat raw. Iris dragged herself forward another meter. She did not know where she was going. There was nowhere to go, just endless crimson wasteland stretching in every direction. The wind howled through the skeleton of a crashed freighter half buried in the sand. Acid rain had eaten holes through its hull. Her parents were dead, killed when the raiders attacked their colony. She had survived because her mother shoved her into an escape pod. That was 8 months ago. 8 months of running. 8 months of being shuffled from one refugee camp to another. 8 months of people looking at her like she was a problem they wanted to forget. Now she would die here. Alone. Forgotten. The fever made her see things that were not there. She thought she saw her mother standing in the distance. She thought she heard her father calling her name. But when she blinked, the visions disappeared into shimmering heat waves that a pool of liquid metal bubbled up from the ground nearby. The planet was geologically active. Geysers of toxic gas erupted without warning. The temperature could swing 30 degrees in an hour. Nothing could survive here. The Coalition surveys said so. They had tested everything. Iris collapsed face down in the sand. She did not have the strength to get up anymore. Her vision was fading to black around the edges. She thought about her parents. She hoped they were waiting for her somewhere. She hoped death would not hurt too much. The ground started shaking. At first, she thought it was another geyser about to blow. But the tremors were rhythmic. Like footsteps. Massive footsteps. Something blocked out the sun. The sudden shade gave her enough strength to roll onto her back. She looked up, and her fever-broken mind could not process what she was seeing. Wings. Enormous wings stretched above her like a canopy. They were covered in scales that looked like they were carved from crystal. Each scale caught the light and split it into rainbow colors. The wings were so big they cast a shadow the size of a building. The creature lowered its head to look at her. Its eyes were the color of molten gold. They were old eyes. Ancient eyes. Eyes that had seen terrible things, not a dragon. Her dying mind whispered the word from old Earth stories. But this was real. This was impossible. Dragons were extinct. The Coalition had hunted them all centuries ago. The dragon made a sound deep in its chest. Not quite a growl. Not quite a song. The vibration rattled through her bones. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt calm. Safe. The dragon lowered its wing until it touched the ground beside her. Then it carefully scooped her up with one massive claw. The touch was gentle despite the size. Like her mother picking her up when she had nightmares as a child. The world spun as the dragon lifted her. She felt herself being tucked against its chest where the scales were smooth and warm. The heartbeat was slow and steady, like distant thunder. She tried to speak, but no words came out. The dragon rumbled again. This time she heard words inside her head, not spoken with sound, but placed there directly. Sleep, little one. You are safe now. The voice was deep and sad. It carried weight like stones at the bottom of an ocean. But there was also kindness there. The kind of kindness that came from understanding suffering. Iris felt her body relaxing against her will. The fever was pulling her under. She fought to stay conscious. This could be another hallucination. Another cruel trick her dying brain was playing on her. But the heartbeat was real. The warmth was real. For the first time in 8 months, someone had not left her behind. Someone had chosen to save her instead of abandoning her to die alone. That a tear rolled down her cheek. She did not know if it was from relief or sadness or the fever burning through her veins. Maybe all three. The dragon began walking. Each step shook the ground, but Iris felt perfectly secure cradled against its chest. The wing folded over her like a blanket. The crystal scales hummed with energy that pushed back against the harsh wasteland air. Her last conscious thought was that if this was death, then maybe death was not so bad after all. At least she would not die alone in the sand. At least in her final moments, something had cared enough to hold her. The darkness took her, and she knew nothing more. When she woke again, she was alive. She should not have been alive, but she was, and she was not alone. Everything smelled like stone and smoke. Iris opened her eyes to darkness that was not quite complete. Faint light filtered through gaps in what looked like a ceiling of rock. No, not rock. Scales. She was looking at the underside of a wing. Her fever had broken. The burning sensation in her blood was gone. She felt weak, but alive in a way she had not felt in days. Her mouth was dry as sand, and a sound made her turn her head. The dragon was watching her from across the small canyon. Up close, its size was overwhelming. Its body would have filled 3 houses stacked on top of each other. The crystal scales covering its hide reflected the dim light of Scoritha's twin moons that we need to address your thirst. The voice appeared in her mind again, calm and patient. Iris tried to speak, but only managed to croak. The dragon made that rumbling sound again and moved closer. It extended one claw, and a stream of clear water poured from a small opening between its scales. The water collected in a depression in the rock floor. Drink slowly. Your body has been through trauma. She crawled to the water and drank. It tasted clean. Better than clean. It tasted like life itself. She forced herself to stop after a few mouthfuls, even though she wanted to drain the whole pool. How? Her voice was rough from disuse that I filter the toxins through my own systems. It is not pleasant, but necessary. Dragons are resilient to most poisons. Iris looked at the massive creature properly for the first time. Its scales were not uniform. Some were cracked. Others were missing entirely, leaving patches of thick hide underneath. Long scars ran along its flanks. This dragon had survived terrible things. Why did you save me? The dragon was silent for a long moment. Its golden eyes dimmed slightly, because no child should die alone and afraid. I know what that feels like. There's such weight in those words. Such old pain. Iris pulled her knees to her chest and studied the dragon. It studied her back. The Coalition says dragons are extinct. They say your kind died out 300 years ago. They say many things. Most are lies designed to make them feel better about genocide. The bitterness in that mental voice was sharp enough to cut. What happened? The dragon shifted its bulk. The movement sent small rocks tumbling down the canyon walls. And why kind possess scales that could withstand any temperature, any pressure, any toxin? The Coalition wanted those scales. They hunted us across 20-star systems. They killed our young first because their scales were softer, easier to harvest. My mate died protecting our nest. I was not strong enough to save her. Iris felt tears burning her eyes. Not from her own pain this time, but from his. I am sorry. You have nothing to apologize for. You were not even born when it happened. The dragon lowered its massive head until it was level with her. I am called Dreven. It has been a very long time since anyone has used that name. I am Evis. She reached out slowly and touched one of his scales. It was warm and smooth like polished glass. Thank you for not leaving me. The galaxy is very good at leaving behind what it finds inconvenient. I decided long ago that I would not become that which I hate. They sat in comfortable silence. Iris felt exhaustion pulling at her, but she was not ready to sleep yet. She had questions. How did you survive here? Skorath is considered worthless to the Coalition. Nothing of value to mine. No strategic importance. They dump their refuse here and forget about it. That makes it the perfect place for something they want to forget. The deep caves have ecosystems that evolved in isolation. Blind fish in underground lakes. Fungal growths, they're technically edible. I have learned to survive. How long have you been alone? 317 years. Give or take a few decades. Time becomes meaningless after the first century. Iris could not imagine that kind of loneliness. 8 months of being shuffled between refugee camps had nearly broken her. 300 years would destroy any mind. You must have been so lonely. I was. The dragon's voice grew softer. But one learns to find peace in solitude, or one goes mad. I chose peace. Do you regret saving me? I mean, I'm just going to die eventually anyway. Humans don't live very long. Driva made a sound that might have been a laugh. All things die, eventually, little one. Even dragons. Even stars. What matters is what we choose to do with the time we have. I chose to save you. I do not regret it. Iris wiped her eyes. Nobody had chosen her in a very long time. Everyone had just passed her along to the next person. The next camp. The next transport. She was a problem with no solution. But Driven had chosen her. Had saved her. Was keeping her alive. I don't know how to survive here. I don't know anything useful. You are human. Your species has survived in environments that would kill most others. You are adaptable in ways the Coalition fears. You will learn. I will teach you. Why? Why go through all that trouble for me? Because you remind me that the galaxy still has children worth protecting. Because when I looked into your eyes as you lay, dying, I saw the same fear I saw in my own young ones. Because I'm tired of death and you represent life. Iris moved closer to the dragon. His warmth was like sitting next to a furnace, but in the cold canyon it felt good. She leaned against his foreleg. It was as thick as a tree trunk. Will you tell me about them? Your family. Driven was quiet for so long Iris thought she had said something wrong. But then he began to speak, to share memories that he had held locked away for 3 centuries. And Iris listened. Outside the canyon, the wasteland continued its endless cycle of destruction. But inside, 2 survivors had found each other. And that made all the difference. 3 months changed everything. Iris learned that the canyon had a name in Driven's language. It translated roughly to the place where echoes rest. She learned that if you listened carefully at night, you could hear water flowing deep underground. She learned which fungus would make you sick and which would keep you alive. Driven taught her how to read the wasteland, how the color of the sand meant danger or safety, how certain rock formations meant fresh water below, how to tell when a geyser was about to erupt by the smell in the air. She learned that dragons did not sleep the way humans did. They entered a state of rest where part of their mind stayed alert. Driven said it was a survival trait from when his kind was hunted. You cannot be caught sleeping if you never truly slept. In return, Iris showed him things he had forgotten. How to laugh. How to find joy in small moments. She collected interesting rocks and brought them back to show him. She made jokes that were not funny, but he pretended they were anyway. She sang songs her mother taught her, even though her voice cracked on the high notes. The shelter grew more complex. Iris found salvage from crashed ships half buried in the sand. Driven would carry the pieces back to the canyon in his claws. She was good with tools, good at figuring out how things worked. She built a better water collection system using panels from a destroyed solar array. She rigged up lights using power cells that still held charges. Driven watched her work with something like wonder. Your species is remarkable. You take broken things and make them useful again. Humans are good at surviving with what we have. Iris tightened the connection with a piece of scrap metal she had bent into a wrench. We had to be. Earth was not always a nice place. Tell me about Earth.s. Oh, she did. She told them about oceans and forests, about cities that touched the sky, about how humans had almost destroyed their own world before learning to fix it, about the wars and the peace that followed, about how they reached for the stars because they dreamed of something better. Driven listened to every word. Sometimes his eyes would close, and she knew he was imagining it all. A world so different from Skorath. One morning Iris woke to find Driven agitated. His scales were flared out, and his tail kept twitching. She had learned to read his moods. What's wrong? There are ships in orbit. They arrived during the night cycle. Her blood went cold. Coalition. I cannot tell from this distance, but they are scanning the surface, looking for something. For you, perhaps. Or perhaps they finally found minerals worth mining. Either way, we must be careful. They spent the day hidden in the deepest part of the canyon. Driven kept his thermal signature low by entering a hibernation state. Iris huddled against his side and tried not to think about being found. The ships passed over 3 times. Each time Iris held her breath. Each time they moved on without stopping. As the sun set, Dreven stirred. They're dropping probes into the atmosphere. Sensor drones to map the surface. Can they find us here? If they scan with the right equipment, yes. My body gives off energy signatures that are distinct, unique. Then we need to leave. Where we go, little one? The deep waste is too dangerous for you. The temperatures there would kill you in hours. The rock formations create dead zones where nothing survives. Then we hide better. We trick their sensors somehow. Dreven made a sound of approval. You think like a survivor. Very well. Let us see what your human cleverness can devise. They spent 2 days modifying the canyon. Iris used reflective panels from the salvage to create false heat signatures in other parts of the wasteland. She buried power cells that gave off energy readings similar to Dreven's signature. She scattered them across 20 kilometers. Dreven helped by flying low to distant locations and leaving traces of his scales. The probes would pick up multiple dragon signatures and have to investigate each one that IT might have worked. It should have worked, but on the 3rd day, everything went wrong. Iris was outside the canyon collecting more salvage when she saw them. Shuttles descending from orbit. Not survey craft. Military transports. They were landing in a pattern that would let them search the entire region. She ran. Her lungs burned. Her legs screamed. She had gotten stronger over 3 months, but she was still just a human child running across broken ground that a shuttle passed overhead. Searchlights swept the sand. She dove behind a rock formation and pressed herself flat. The light moved on. She made it back to the canyon, gasping for air. Dreven was already preparing for battle. His scales were raised. His eyes were focused. They found us. Yes, they must have better sensors than I anticipated. The voice in her mind was calm, but she could feel the tension underneath. You need to hide, deep in the caves. They will not pursue you there. I'm not leaving you. Iris. The mental voice was sharp. I have lived 300 years. You have barely lived 12. Your life has value. Mine has already been spent. No. She planted her feet. You didn't leave me to die. I won't leave you. The first shuttle landed at the canyon entrance. Armed soldiers poured out. They wore armor designed to withstand extreme temperatures. They carried weapons that hummed with power. A man stepped forward. His uniform marked him as high-ranking. He looked at Dreven with eyes that saw profit, not life. Well, the reports were true. A living dragon. Do you have any idea what you're worth? Dreven growled. The sound shook rocks loose from the canyon walls. I know exactly what I am worth to creatures like you. The same as I was worth 300 years ago. More dead than alive, the officer smiled. Not dead. We need you alive. At least at first. The process of harvesting your scales works better on living tissue. Iris felt rage burning through her fear. These are the same kind of people who had left her die, who saw everything as resources to be used. You can't have him. The officer finally noticed her. His expression shifted to contempt. A human child? Out here? How did you survive? He saved me. The officer laughed. Then he made a mistake. Should have let you die. Would have saved us both some trouble. Dreven moved faster than something his size should have been able to. His tail swept through the soldiers, scattering them like toys. His claws carved furrows in the armored shuttle. But there were too many, and they had come prepared, weapons fired. Energy nets designed to contain large creatures. Restraining bolts that dug into scales and injected paralytic compounds. Sonic disruptors that targeted dragon hearing. Dreven roared in pain and fury. But he did not stop. He kept fighting, kept destroying, kept placing himself between Iris and the soldiers, because that was what you did for family. You protected them, no matter the cost. Blood the color of liquid copper spattered across the canyon floor. Dreven had taken a direct hit from a weapon that cracked his scales. The soldiers kept firing, kept advancing. Iris grabbed a piece of sharp metal from her salvage pile and ran at the nearest soldier. She was small and fast. She got under his guard and stabbed the metal through a joint in his armor. He screamed and went down. You little monster. The officer aimed his weapon at her. Dreven's wing knocked the gun away before he could fire. 3 claws raked across the officer's chest plate, leaving deep gouges. The man stumbled backward, but more soldiers were coming. A second shuttle was landing. They had called for reinforcements. Get behind me. Dreven's mental voice was strained. He was hurt worse than he wanted to admit. One of the soldiers fired a device that attached to Dreven's neck. Electric current coursed through his body. His legs buckled. He crashed to the ground hard enough to crack stone. No. Iris ran to him. Tried to pull the device off. It shocked her and threw her back. Her hands were burned. The officer stood over them both. Blood seeped through his damaged armor, but he was smiling. Impressive fight. But it's over. The dragon is coming with us. As for you, he looked at Iris with cold calculation. You're a witness. Can't have you telling stories about what happened here. He raised his weapon. Iris looked into the barrel and thought about her parents. About how she had survived so much just to die here anyway. At least she would die trying to protect someone she loved. Dreven made a sound. Not a roar. Something worse. Something ancient and full of 300 years of rage and grief and loneliness finally finding a target. His body flared with light. The crystal scales erupted with energy that had been building for centuries. The electrical device shattered. The soldiers closest to him were thrown back by the shock wave. He rose to his full height. Blood dripped from a dozen wounds, but he did not fall. His eyes burned like stars. You will not touch her, the officer fired. The shot hit Dreven directly in the chest. The scales cracked further, but held. Dreven's tail swept in a wide arc. It caught the officer and sent him flying into the canyon wall. He did not get up. More weapons fire. More nets. Dreven grabbed a shuttle in his claws and threw it at the advancing soldiers. The impact created a barrier of twisted metal and fire. Run, Iris. Please. I cannot protect you if I am worried about where you are. I'm not leaving you. Then you'll watch me die. Is that what you want? The words hit harder than any weapon. Iris looked at Dreven. At his wounds. At the soldiers regrouping. At the impossible odds. She ran, not away from the battle, toward the salvage area. There was a crashed shuttle she had been picking parts from. One that still had a functional communications array if she could get it powered up. Her hands shook as she connected power cells. Behind her, she could hear the sounds of battle. Dreven roaring. Weapons firing. Metal screaming as it was torn apart. The array sparked to life. She had one shot at this. The soldiers would track the transmission immediately. But she had to try. She keyed it to broadcast on all frequencies. Emergency channels. Civilian channels. Everything. This is Iris. I'm a human. I'm 12 years old. 3 months ago, a refugee transport abandoned me on Skorath to die. I had radiation poisoning. They left me in the Wasteland because I was inconvenient. Her voice was shaking, but she forced herself to continue. A dragon found me. His name is Dreven. He saved my life. He gave me water and food. He taught me how to survive. He became my family when everyone else threw me away. Weapons fire in the distance. Closer now. They were coming for her. Now coalition soldiers are trying to kill him. They want to cut him up and sell his scales. They said I have to die too because I'm a witness. They're going to murder us both and nobody will ever know what happened. She gripped the transmitter so hard her knuckles went white. I don't know if anyone is listening. I don't know if anyone cares. But I need you to hear this. The galaxy abandoned me. The galaxy hunted Dreven's entire species to extinction for profit. And now we're supposed to just die quietly so nobody has to feel bad about it. Her voice got stronger, clearer. Is this who we are? Is this what civilization means? Throwing away the inconvenient? Killing the different? Taking everything from someone just because we can? Footsteps outside the crashed shuttle. They had found her. If anyone hears this, if anyone out there still remembers what it means to be decent, we're on Skorath. We're dying here. And we deserve better than this. The door to the shuttle tore open. A soldier pointed his weapon at her. Clever girl. But that transmission won't reach anyone before we jam it. Maybe. Iris raised her chin. Or maybe somewhere someone is listening. And maybe they'll actually give a damn. The soldier grabbed her arm and dragged her out. She kicked and fought, but he was too strong. He hauled her back toward the canyon where Dreven was still fighting. The dragon was surrounded now. They had him pinned with nets and restraining cables. Energy weapons had burned through several of his scales. He was bleeding from multiple wounds, but when he saw them dragging Iris, his eyes flared with fresh fury. He lunged against the restraints hard enough to snap 2 cables. Soldiers scattered. Let her go. Not happening. The soldier threw Iris to the ground. But I'll make you a deal, dragon. Stop fighting and we'll let her live. Keep this up and we kill her first. Make you watch. Dreven went still. The fight drained out of him. No, don't listen to them. Iris struggled to her feet. They'll kill us both anyway. The dragon looked at her, really looked at her, and she saw in his eyes that he knew she was right. But he also knew he would do anything to buy her even one more minute of life. That I am sorry, little one. I failed you like I fail my own young. You didn't fail anyone. You're the only person who didn't abandon me. How touching. The officer had recovered enough to stand. Half his face was covered in blood, but he was smiling. Kill them both. Make it quick. We've wasted enough time on this sentiment. The soldiers raised their weapons. High above Skorath, space rippled. Ships were dropping out of hyperspace. Not coalition vessels. These were different. Smaller. Faster. Ships that bore the markings of independent human vessels. And they were broadcasting a message that echoed across every channel. Not today. The first ship to break atmosphere was painted with faded military colors. It bore the symbol of the Frontier Guard, former coalition soldiers who had quit when they were ordered to abandon refugees. They had become legends in the outer colonies. Protectors who actually protected. The ship's weapons locked onto the coalition forces. Hors coalition personnelle. Stand down immediately. Drop your weapons and step away from the dragon and child. The officer wiped blood from his face and looked up in disbelief. You have no authority here. This is coalition jurisdiction. Wrong. The voice from the ship was hard as steel. Your jurisdiction ended when you tried to murder a child. We received a distress call. We responded. That's what decent people do. More ships appeared. Not military vessels. Civilian transport. Trading ships. Even a few pleasure craft. They came from different directions, but they all broadcast the same message. They had heard Iris. And they came. The officer's face went red. This is an internal coalition matter. You're interfering with official business. Official business. The Frontier Guard commander's voice dripped with contempt. Is that what you call butchering endangered species and executing children? We have a different word for it. The coalition soldiers looked at each other. They were outnumbered now. Outgunned. And their officer was wounded and making bad decisions. One by one, they lowered their weapons. The officer screamed at them to keep fighting, but nobody listened. They were soldiers, not murderers. There was a line, and everyone had just realized they were on the wrong side of it. A shuttle landed near Iris. The door opened, and a woman in worn combat armor stepped out. She had gray hair and scars across her face. Her eyes were kind, but her expression was all business. I am Commander Walsh. Are you Iris? Iris nodded. She did not trust her voice yet. Good. Let's get you and your friend out of here. Walsh looked at Dreven, and her expression softened. He really saved you? Yes. Then we save him back. That's how this works. Walsh's team moved with practiced efficiency. They cut the restraining cables and removed the nets. A medic immediately started treating Dreven's wounds with supplies designed for large creatures. Dragon biology was in the old databases. Apparently, some people still remembered. Dreven was silent. His golden eyes tracked everything, but he did not move. He had been hurt and betrayed too many times to trust easily. Iris walked to his head and put her small hand on his snout. It's okay. They came because they heard me. Because they care. Dreven made a low sound. Relief mixed with disbelief. There's still good ones. I had forgotten. More ships kept arriving. Iris learned later that her transmission had been picked up by a civilian relay station before the coalition could jam it. The station operator had broadcast it across half the sector. Within an hour, it had spread to hundreds of systems. People heard a child's voice asking if anyone still cared, and they decided to answer. The coalition forces were surrounded now. Walsh ordered them confined to their shuttles under guard. The wounded officer was taken into custody. This isn't over, he snarled at Walsh. The coalition will come for you. For all of you. Let them come. Walsh's voice was calm. Every ship here has a copy of that transmission. Every person here is a witness. The whole galaxy knows what you try to do. Good luck explaining that to your superiors. Over the next hours, more ships arrived. Not to fight, just to be present, to stand witness. The coalition tried to send reinforcements, but found their path blocked by an impromptu fleet of civilian vessels who refused to move. That it became a standoff. But it was a standoff the coalition could not win. Not without opening fire on civilians from a dozen different species. Not when the whole galaxy was watching. Walsh sat with Iris while the medics finished with Dreven. That was incredibly brave what you did. Stupid but brave. I didn't know what else to do. You asked for help. Most people never even do that. They suffer in silence. You made noise. You made sure people knew. Walsh looked at the growing fleet around them. You reminded us that some things are worth fighting for. Will Dreven be okay? The medics say yes. Dragons are tough. He'll have new scars, but he'll heal. Walsh paused. Question is what happens next. He can't stay here. Not now that the coalition knows he's alive. Iris felt panic rising. You can't let them take him. I won't. But he needs somewhere safe. Somewhere the coalition can't reach. Where? Walsh smiled. Ever heard of New Haven? It was a colony world in the frontier regions. Beyond coalition jurisdiction. A place built by refugees and outcasts. By people who had been abandoned by the galaxy and decided to build something better. We protect our own there, Walsh explained. Nobody gets left behind. Nobody gets hunted for what they are. You'd both be welcome. Iris looked at Dreven. His wounds were bandaged now. He looked exhausted but alive. What do you think? The dragon was quiet for a long moment. Iris could feel him struggling with the decision. He had been alone for so long. Trust had not come easy. Finally he spoke. Not just to Iris, but to Walsh as well. His mental voice reached them both that I have spent 3 centuries hiding, running, surviving, but not living. This child taught me there is a difference. If you promise she will be safe, I will go with you. I promise, Walsh said. Both of you will be safe. You have my word. Dreven looked at Iris. What do you say, little one? Shall we see if there is still a place in this galaxy for ones like us? Iris thought about the canyon. About 3 months of learning to survive. About finding family in the least likely place. About how Dreven had chosen her when no one else would. Together, she said. We do it together. The dragon's rumbling laugh echoed through the canyon. It was a sound of hope together then. I can live with that. The coalition forces were released after all their weapons were confiscated. They limped back to orbit watched by hundreds of civilian vessels. They would file reports. They would complain. But they would not come back. Not with the whole galaxy watching that Walsh's ship was large enough to carry Dreven. Barely. The dragon had to curl up in the cargo bay, but he did not complain. Iris sat with him for the entire journey. As Skorath fell away behind them, Dreven spoke quietly. Thank you for not giving up. On me. On yourself. You saved me first. We saved each other. That is what family does. Iris smiled and leaned against his scaled side. Ahead lay New Haven. A new start. A place where being different was not a death sentence. Behind them, dozens of ships followed. Not as escorts. As volunteers. People who had heard a child's voice and decided the galaxy needed to be better. One voice had sparked it all. One cry for help in the dark. And the dark had answered with light. New Haven appeared through the viewport like a promise kept. Green continents. Blue oceans. White clouds drifting across a world that actually wanted things to live on it. After months on Skorath, it looked like paradise. The colony had started 20 years ago with 3 ships full of refugees nobody else wanted. Now it sprawled across an entire continent. Buildings mixed with nature. Technology that worked with the environment instead of against it. Most importantly, no coalition flags. No coalition laws. No coalition telling people they did not matter. Walsh's ship landed at the main settlement. A crowd had gathered. Word had spread about the dragon and the girl who called for help. About the fleet that answered. About ordinary people standing up to power. The cargo bay doors opened. Dreven emerged slowly. He had not been around this many people in 300 years. His scales were tense. His eyes scanned for threats, but the crowd did not attack. They did not run in fear. They simply watched, waiting that a small child broke free from her parents and ran forward. She held out a flower. one of the native blooms that grew in the valleys. For you, because you're hurt. Dreven stared at the tiny human offering him a flower. Something in his ancient eyes softened. He lowered his massive head and accepted it gently between two claws. "Thank you, little one," the child giggled and ran back to her parents. More people approached. Slowly, carefully, bringing water and food. Bringing welcome. Iris stood beside, Dreven watching it all. Walsh appeared next to her. "Welcome to New Haven. Your new home if you want it. What happens now? Now? You rest. You heal. You figure out what kind of life you want to build." Walsh gestured to the settlement. "We have schools, medical facilities, work for those who want it, or you could just be a kid for a while. Learn to not look over your shoulder every minute." It sounded too good to be true. Iris had learned to distrust good things. They usually got taken away. Dreven sensed her worried that we do not have to stay if you are uncomfortable. "No, I want to. I'm just scared." "Of what?" "That this is temporary. That someone will decide we don't belong here either." Walsh heard that. She crouched down to Iris's eye level. "Listen to me. New Haven exists because every person here knows what it's like to be thrown away. To be told you don't matter. We built this place on one rule. Nobody gets left behind. Ever. But what about the coalition? Won't they come? Let them try. We're not under their authority. We're too far out, and they have bigger problems now." Walsh smiled grimly. "Your transmission got picked up everywhere. There are protests happening on dozens of worlds. Questions being asked. Investigations starting. Turns out people don't like it when their government murders children." A group of engineers approached Dreven. They were respectful, careful not to crowd him. "Sir, we'd like to help with your wounds if you'll allow it. We have experience with large creature care. Used to work with settlement beasts before they went extinct." Dreven considered them. Iris felt him reaching out with his mind, testing their intentions. After a moment, he relaxed. "I would appreciate that. It has been a long time since I received proper medical care." The engineers got to work. They were gentle and professional. They explained everything they were doing. Dreven actually seemed to enjoy the attention. Walsh took Iris on a tour of the settlement. She saw classrooms full of children from a dozen species. She saw workshops where people built things. She saw gardens where they grew food. She saw homes that looked comfortable and lived in. "How many people live here?" "About 50,000 now. More arrive every month. We take in refugees, outcasts, people running from bad situations. If you're willing to work and contribute, you're welcome." They stopped at a residential building. Walsh opened a door to reveal a small apartment. Simple but clean. A bed, a desk, a window with a view of the valley. "This is yours if you want it." We also have a larger space being prepared for Dreven, near the cliffs. Plenty of room for him to move around. Iris walked into the room. It smelled like fresh paint and new beginnings. She sat on the bed. It was soft, comfortable, the kind of bed where you could actually sleep without worrying about what might happen. She started crying. Not sad tears. Something else. Relief maybe, or grief for all the time spent afraid, or joy that it might finally be over. Walsh sat beside her and did not say anything. Just waited. "I don't know how to do this. How to be normal. Nobody here is normal. That's the point. You just be yourself. Figure out what makes you happy. We'll help however we can." Over the next days, Iris started to settle in. She registered for school. She met other children who had their own stories of loss and survival. She was not the only one carrying scars. Dreven moved into a space near the cliffs. It had a cave system with thermal regulation, room to fly, a clear view of the sky. People visited him, brought him food, asked about his life. He started to share stories, started to remember he could be more than just a survivor. Iris visited him every evening. They would sit together and watch the sunset, so different from the harsh reds of Skorath. One night, Dreven spoke quietly. "I owe you an apology." "For what?" "When I saved you on Skorath, I thought I was giving you a few more days of life. I did not imagine we would end up here. I did not think either of us had a future. What changed? You refused to give up. On yourself. On me. On the idea that the galaxy could be better. You were braver than I was. I was terrified. Bravery is not the absence of fear, little one. It is doing what must be done despite the fear. You taught me that. They sat in comfortable silence. More ships had arrived at New Haven. More people who heard the story and decided to be part of something good. The colony was growing. Walsh appeared walking up the path. She had news. The coalition issued a formal apology. They're opening investigations into their extinction protocols. Some high-ranking officials are being removed from their positions. She smiled. Your transmission changed things. Not everything, but enough. Iris felt strange about that. She had not been trying to start a movement. She had just been trying to survive. What about dragons? Are they still endangered? Technically, yes, but there are reports coming in. Other sightings. Apparently, Dreven was not the only survivor. They were just very good at hiding. Walsh looked at the dragon. You might not be alone after all. Dreven was silent for a long moment. Then his scales rippled with something like hope. I would like that. To meet others of my kind. To not be the last. Walsh left them alone. Iris leaned against Dreven's side like she had done countless times. Are you happy? The dragon considered the question. I am healing. Happiness is still new. But yes, I think I am learning what it feels like. What about you? Same. It's weird. Being safe. But good weird. They watched the stars appear one by one. Somewhere up there, the galaxy was continuing. Wars and peace. Love and loss. Cruelty and kindness all mixed together. But down here on New Haven, two survivors had found something worth keeping. A place to belong. A family they chose. A future they built together. Dreven. Yes, little one. Thank you for not leaving me in that wasteland. Thank you for reminding me why life is worth living. The settlement lights came on below them, warm and welcoming. Music drifted up from someone's celebration. Children laughed. Life continued. In a galaxy that could be cruel, they had chosen to be kind. They had chosen to protect each other. They had chosen to believe that caring mattered. And that choice changed everything. 5 years later, a ship arrived carrying 3 young dragons who had heard stories of Dreven, who had come seeking others of their kind. Iris was there when they landed. She watched Dreven meet them, watched 300 years of loneliness finally break. She was 17 now, training as an engineer and diplomat, using her story to help others, building a life she chose. New Haven had grown. Other settlements had formed. The movement spread, people remembering that compassion was not weakness, that protecting the vulnerable was not optional. The coalition had changed too. Not completely, never completely, but enough that hunting endangered species was now illegal. Enough that abandoning refugees had consequences. Enough that some progress was made, and it started with one transmission, one voice crying out in the dark, and the galaxy finally answering with light. Iris stood on the cliffs watching Dreven fly with his new family. He was teaching them the joy of soaring, the freedom of choosing your own path, the power of never giving up on hope. She smiled. In a galaxy full of stars, they had found their place. Not by being strong, not by being perfect, but by refusing to become what they had survived. And that made all the difference.